morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, where once again Hollywood is potentially bringing a lot of things to the silver screen that we want to see happen, yet is also potentially messing them up in the process. It's so weird that this continues to happen. It's like no actual fans of the material actually work in Hollywood. And this is great material, so even if they weren't initially exposed to it, I have a hard time understanding how they don't become fans when they're asked to adapt it. Why don't they read it and go, this is awesome, I want to do this justice. Instead they're like, people like this I guess, but let me put my own special twist on it because even though it's been popular for so long, I think it needs me. Alright, so what are we talking about here? What beloved things are in danger? Well, the first one is a live-action Mulan. Now, we knew this was on Disney's slate. I even did an episode casting Mulan about a week or so ago, and I'll put a link to that in the video description and at the end of this episode. But Disney, because of the success of Cinderella, is aggressively moving forward now at that live-action Mulan. We wondered would it ever happen. Sometimes just because things are in development doesn't mean they're anywhere close to actually becoming a movie, but it looks like a live-action Mulan is moving forward now very quickly, which makes total sense because it's a great idea. It's a live-action fairy tale, but with a strong warrior, fighting component. So that has the potential to be very big, appealing to both, male and female audiences. Although apparently, Cinderella skews kind of female, but I think Maleficent was pretty wide in its appeal, and so was Alice and Oz the Great and Powerful. So, Disney so far knows what it's doing in terms of, hitting that sweet spot with these live-action fairy tales. So what steps have been taken? Well, they've purchased a script, and that's really all they've done so far from a female writing team, and that's what kind of garnered these headlines. Hollywood Reporter, discussed it, although there's not too much else going on. Except one other bit that was revealed, which is a giant red flag, and that's what we're going to discuss right now, and that's the crux of why this story is being reported and the whole theme for the episode. And that's who's producing the live-action Mulan. Is it Joe Roth, who's produced so many live-action fairy tales quite successfully for Disney? No, it's not. It's actually the team of Bender and Spink, who really only produce comedies. They did We're the Millers, they did the Hangover trilogy. So I looked at their resume and I was like, oh, please tell me they've done something that's even close to a live-action Mulan movie. And the closest I could come up with was I Am Number 4, that really, Twilight wannabe with Alex Pettyfer. That was his first big introductory movie, and Teresa Palmer. Then The Butterfly Effect with Ashton Kutcher. Although, there have been 2 Butterfly Effects, and it looks like they're rebooting that franchise, so it's a successful brand. And then also some movie they're working on called Criminal, which is coming up, which stars Gal Gadot, Ryan Reynolds, Gary Oldman, Kevin Costner, Michael Pitt. It has a pretty decent cast, but again, it's coming from this team which really only does comedies. They did like The Incredible Burt Wonderstone. So I really have a hard time understanding why Disney would be like, who should produce our live-action Mulan? This comedy team! And it worries me that they're going to try and skew towards more the comedy of the cross-dressing. Now, I'm sure there can be some good comedic moments found there, and there were in the animated movie. But Mulan, overall, is the story of a warrior. And if it doesn't have that strong aspect to it, I really worry about how the film is going to be accepted and if it's going to be a success for Disney. The cross-dressing element has to be very delicately handled. The animated movie did do that correctly, but I feel that, it's an easy joke and Disney should have the self-control not to make it. Because there's so much more going on there. It's a time and a period where women couldn't serve in the military. This is the only choice Mulan had. And so it's a sophisticated choice, and it's a choice that should be respected, not the butt of jokes. So I want to see a very cinematic Mulan, which has beautiful, shots and scenes of China. And I mean, how do you think China's going to react if you produce a comedy based on Mulan, one of their greatest legends of all time in the nation? It just seems so bad to me that I'm now very worried, actually, about the film. So we'll see how it turns out. But I'm nervous. I'm very nervous. I don't think this is the twist they want to go with Mulan. Alright, so that's the first story of the day. Now the second story of the day I like quite a bit. It was actually brought to my attention by a BTT viewer, Rachel Daniels, who tweeted this to me late last night. Thank goodness I was on my Twitter account. And she goes, she sent this rumor to me, which is picking up a lot of steam this morning. And that's that Scott Eastwood, who's just been cast in Suicide Squad, playing Steve Trevor. And I was like, that's a delightful rumor, Rachel. I retweeted it, and now I want to discuss it today on Morning Movie News. So thank you, Rachel, for bringing that to my attention. Now, Steve Trevor is one of the few things I've really liked about the New 52. I felt they finally gave this character some self-respect. They made him the government liaison with the Justice League of America. That's the government version of the Justice League in the New 52. And he also has quite the interesting relationship with Amanda Waller, although he's much younger than Viola Davis, so I don't know if they'll explore that here. They still could, but I liked kind of them, hooking up in the comic. I thought it was important to show him moving on from Wonder Woman. And when they had him in the New 52, he'd already had his relationship with Wonder Woman, and she was his ex, which kind of made things awkward when he was supposed to be a liaison for the Justice League and, running his own team, which was great. It was a really interesting way to look at their relationship. And to give Steve Trevor something to do besides just be like, I'm Wonder Woman's boy toy, I think is really important and gives her a better love interest and makes her seem better as a character. So while I didn't like a lot of the new things in the New 52, I really liked what they did with Steve Trevor. So can Scott Eastwood pull this role off? I don't know. He is, about the same age as Gal Gadot, so maybe you could see them as a couple, but I do worry that Scott Eastwood might be too much of a pretty boy for the role. And Steve Trevor's supposed to be attractive, but there's lots of different ways you can be attractive. I think what's most important is that Steve Trevor have a lot of charisma and personality, that he really pops off the screen, that he's someone that people not only can see Wonder Woman being interested in, besides his looks, because Wonder Woman isn't shallow, but that also, people are interested in getting to know more and seeing, in an exciting, capacity and how he operates with, the team and the government, etc. Maybe he's going to run the Suicide Squad, although it's supposed to be, I believe, Rick Flag. And you know what, to Scott Eastwood's credit, I don't want to write him off as a hunk. I don't know if you've seen Kit Harington's recent talk about he doesn't like the degrading aspect of being called a hunk. He's like, that's not why I got into acting, and I had a lot of respect for him saying that. It's a delicate thing to discuss, but I thought that Kit Harington did a great job discussing it. And he also said, and I think to his credit, he said, I'm sure actresses feel the same way that I do. I'm an actor, I want to play roles, I want to show that I have personality and charisma, and so maybe Scott Eastwood does as well. But I have to say, he's had a lot of opportunities to show it so far because he's Clint Eastwood's son, and so far we haven't seen it. So I don't know. Just because someone is a great actor doesn't mean their children are great actors. That's one of the dangers of nepotism. Sometimes, untalented children are forced upon us by Hollywood. And I fear that Scott Eastwood might be that situation. So I'm sure he looks great smoking a cigar, but that's not enough for Steve Trevor. That's the old Steve Trevor. We need an exciting Steve Trevor. And so that's what I'd like to see here. But I think it's a good starting place. I'm glad that he's in Suicide Squad, and I do like that they seem to be building a rich history for Suicide Squad, which is also important. And so I'm excited about the world building that seems to be going on there. I hope they don't bite off too much, more than they can chew. That's a worry that we have about Justice League as well, but we'll see how it plays out with Suicide Squad. But I do like Steve Trevor, and I'm curious to what you guys think. Do you like the new Steve Trevor in the New 52? And do you think Scott Eastwood could pull that role off, besides just being Clint Eastwood's son? I mean, if they wanted to go back in time and get young Clint Eastwood, that would have been great, but Scott Eastwood I don't think is any Clint Eastwood. All right, so that's the second story of the day. Now, the third story of the day has to do with another rumor that was brought to my attention, although I believe that person deleted their tweet. I wanted to give them credit for it, but alas, it's not there. But this is a rumor that's also circulating, and that's that Asa Butterfield is also up for the role of Peter Parker in the new Sony Marvel version of the character, and that there's someone in particular that might be directing, and that's the better part of this rumor. But first, let's talk about Asa Butterfield. Asa Butterfield, I don't think that Asa Butterfield is particularly funny at all. I've never seen him be funny. Again, maybe there's hidden depths he hasn't mined yet, but so far he hasn't mined them, and I fear that's for a reason. But also, you're talking about the face of a franchise or a potential franchise that totally failed, and that's Ender's Game. And Asa Butterfield was pretty good in it, but, I don't think he had a lot of personality in that movie. Neither is the character of Ender so much, but I really wasn't captivated. I wasn't like when I watched Taron Egerton in Kingsman, and I was like, this guy's a future star. But with Asa Butterfield, I was like, okay, he's pretty good. I'm enjoying this movie somewhat. Ender's Game was okay, I felt, but not horrible. So Asa Butterfield, I'm like, why would you even consider him for the this role. But what's exciting is the potential idea of Adam McKay directing Spider-Man. I think that's a great idea, although I also like Drew Goddard, who was supposed to be up for it. I think that Adam McKay having anything to do with Spider-Man is smart because Adam McKay obviously comes from a very strong comedic background. However, the only wrinkle here is that Spider-Man isn't going to be a Marvel Studios movie, and Adam McKay is supposed to be working with Marvel Studios. The Spider-Man movie is actually going to be a Sony film, the standalone one. But Adam McKay could be an advisor on how they handle the Spider-Man character, and I think it's important to have that humor in there. And to Andrew Garfield's credit, I think he did a really good job with the humor, and it's a shame he won't be able to continue with that. Now, also people are saying that maybe Adam McKay will direct Inhumans, which is ridiculous. It's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. It's like the Bender Spink team doing the live-action Mulan. Inhumans is not a comedic property, so you shouldn't take someone who's comedic and put them on it. I know people can expand their horizons, and look at what the Russo brothers accomplished, but I think it's unlikely, and I don't think it's something that should be done. I think it's not a risk that should be taken again and again and again. Just be happy that it worked out so well with the Russo brothers, and let people operate in their wheelhouse. Let them do what they do best. I think it's important to get the right talent on the right property, and not just someone who's like, hey, I would like to try. You want to try this? Sure, I'll try it. And if it doesn't work out, I'm not a fan of this anyway. Who cares about the people who are? So those are the three stories of the day, and I have a viewer question here from Jacob McDonald. And Jacob says, hi Grace, I love your videos and watch them every day. Thank you, Jacob. Awesome. I hope you're enjoying today's episode. And Jacob says, I was wondering if you think an older actress could be a part of the MCU. Like actresses like Jessica Chastain, 37, or Julianne Moore, 54. Could they play Medusa, or are they too old? Could someone like Reese Witherspoon, 38, or Naomi Watts, 46, play Captain Marvel? I'm asking this because I've noticed that the male Avengers in the MCU, like Robert Downey Jr. and Mark Ruffalo, both in their late 40s, are much older. And the only female Avenger, Scarlett Johansson, is 30, and then the upcoming next is Elizabeth Olsen, Scarlet Witch, and she's 26. And Jacob says, I'm not a comic book reader, but I do love comic book movies, so I don't know how comic book fans would react to this kind of casting. But I personally love the idea of an already established middle-aged actress playing such a strong female character. Hope you answer my question. Double smiley face and a star. Awesome. I love when you guys put like a little emoji cons and stuff in there. I think that's awesome. Some of you got pretty inventive with your gravity entries for those Blu-rays, which is very cool. So Jacob, of course I agree with you. I think that they would be fantastic. I think a lot of your casting ideas here are actually pretty good. Reese Witherspoon could make a very good Captain Marvel, I think. Although I think her box office track record's a little poor at this point. I do like Jessica Chastain as Medusa. I think she'd be excellent in the role. But I also think Julianne Moore is an excellent choice because I really liked her. She was one of the few good things in Seventh Son. I thought she was very good there. And she would, I think, have the regal quality that Medusa is supposed to have. And these actresses all look great, flying in the face of the myth that once actresses get older, they don't look good anymore. It's a ridiculous Hollywood stereotype, and it's something that they perpetrate by only casting younger actresses while they continue to hire, cast older actors. They just pair them up with new ingenues. And the Oscars are guilty of this, of often awarding the Oscars to ingenues as well. But, Julianne Moore just won, so that's good. But then also I think comic books are a little bit to blame here. For instance, we also talk about a lot about the fact that how they really show a lot of lesbian characters and bisexual female characters in comics. That's something some of you brought up, I think, which is very good. And they very rarely have male, gay characters or bisexual characters in comics on the flip side. And there's no representation there. And some of you, I think, accurately pointed out that while a lot of male comic book readers would like to see two women make out, it's too far to go with two guys. And that, speaking to the male voyeurism that's very apparent in comics. Now, is it apparent in comics? That's a big question. Or is this just something that the comic book industry perceives to be there and is actually not? I think that they might be wrong, in fact, considering how well some of these things are received and how many people want to see, the LGBT community represented from the male perspective as well. So I think there is an audience for that, and I think that maybe I think you have a certain type of person in the comic book industry that maybe isn't evolving with the readership, and so they're like, I like seeing two women make out, so do my readers. But it's like, I don't think you totally get your readers. I don't think you guys are, you go to these comic book conventions and you meet your fans, but I think sure there might be a contingent that is like that, the same that's very misogynistic in their comments towards female readers, but that's a small, angry, unfortunately very vocal group that you shouldn't let ruin comics for everybody else and your very, quickly expanding audience these days, especially since comics have gone digital. So I would say that this is a bad thing that's being perpetrated by Hollywood and the comic book industry in terms of, oh, we only want to see, a certain type of woman who's a certain age and looks a certain way, and that's the only way women can be perceived as attractive. That's the only kind of thing people want to see. That's the only type of sexuality people want to see. I think that's all wrong. I think that, you look at movies like Fast and Furious, which I'll be reviewing today, very diverse. Diversity, same problem. Oh, people don't want to see diversity. That's just something that, a couple of people are angry about. Not true. And so I think you need people to take a risk, and I hope that Marvel would potentially be those people, because they're not afraid to cast older actors, male actors. Why not cast older actresses as well that I think would be very good in these roles and people do want to see? So I'm glad you asked this question, Jacob, and I hope more people bring it up. And Emily Blunt, she's older than Scarlett Johansson and Elizabeth Olsen, so I think that's a step in the right direction. And that's someone a lot of us want to see in that role. Charlize Theron, also an older actress, and it's crazy to just, I don't even like saying older. They're just not the same age as these other actresses. I don't like labels. I think we should judge each actor and actress independently and just if they're good for the role or not. But, people wanting to see Emily Blunt and Charlize Theron shows that there isn't this kind of discrimination in the audience. And this is something that Hollywood and the comic book industry have to get over. TV got over it, and they've had a lot of success because of that. All right, so thank you so much for your question, Jacob. I think it's a phenomenal question. I'm very excited for everyone to discuss it in the comments down below. So please write down below what you think of today's top 3 stories and the viewer question, and of course any questions that you'd like to see answered. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.